Hi there, Tracy here with another scrapbooking layout. This one is also using the Counting Stars kit from Scraptastic, and I'm just going to scrapbook this picture of my coffee cup, but in the background, and it's blurred, you can't quite tell, but my husband is actually out of focus in the background, and I think it looks kind of cool. I love that gray sweater he's wearing. It's my favorite sweater that he owns. And I love all the grays, and then that pop of yellow with the caution that says wet floor, that one of those little things. So I am matting this because it's printed at 4x4, and so I couldn't leave a mat around it, like leave a little border around it. So I just matted it on a piece of paper. It's actually pattern paper with the stars on it. It's the Studio Tech paper, and I love that paper. I love I love how it looks as a mat because it has this geometric look to it. You can just see the lines. It looks like, I don't know, it reminds me of like a blueprint, or it has a real masculine feel to it. So I thought it was the perfect paper for matting this photo of Scott. And then I just matted it again on a piece of dark blue paper, cardstock that came in the kit. That was the middle part of the mat that I used on the last layout. So I've picked out these papers. They're just kind of the ones that are standing out to me as looking good with this photo. And so I've picked lots of grays, and I definitely want a pop of yellow on this layout. I don't want yellow to be a main color, but I just want something that's going to bring the yellow in the photo out a little bit. So the photo has lots of grays, and then it has some warm tones like his face, and then there's some red on the chairs kind of behind him. And so I'm going with this polka dotted paper. It's kind of like a ombre effect from light to dark. The Studio Tech. That's actually the back side of the star black and white paper that I used in the mat. So I'm having a look at the embellishments that came with the kit. And I'm just picking out embellishments that have sort of I'm just playing around with these. I'm probably not going to use them, but I was just kind of playing around with them, just, I don't know, for fun. And looking at some of the stuff that came in the kit. I'd like to use this star mask that came in the kit. It's exclusive to the kit, and I really love it. And it fits perfectly on that, well, not perfectly, but it fits really well on that black tag that came in the kit. So I'm thinking about adding a third mat, which is really a lot. I don't usually even double mat. So I decided to kind of cut the corner off of it and use it as a bit of a photo corner. That way it's not quite so over matted for my taste. So now I'm going to trim down this paper, and then I'm going to regret it. You'll see. But basically I want this paper to be a horizontal strip across the middle of the photo, of the layout, that's going to hold the photo and the title and the journaling. And I often leave these kinds of pieces way too big, and so I decided to trim it down, and I ended up trimming it down a little bit more than I would have liked. But you'll see where that causes a problem in a few minutes. So for now, I'm trying to decide how I'm going to use this Amy Tangerine paper. So that polka dotted paper, again, is Studio Tech. And then this paper with the gray, that's gray with the white words all over it, is Amy Tangerine from the Stitched collection. And so I cut that one a little bit too big, so I'm going to cut it down a little bit. And at first, I always do these L-shaped layouts, and I decided that instead of doing an L-shaped layout, I thought I would center everything instead of having it off to one side. And this is a really different look for me. Like, I know it's like nothing special, but it's not something that I do all that often. So I was really excited actually to put the papers together like this, even though it's not like earth-shattering or anything. I just like that. I never center anything, so centered is like a really radical look for me. And I've decided to use that stone-colored cardstock that came in the kit. So far everything that I'm using is from the kit, but I am going to add a few things from my stash, and I'll let you know when they show up. So here are the letter stickers from the kit. Came with 2 stickers, and I'm using the kit and the add-on. And so of course I can't resist calling this Love Him a Latte. That's just like, if you know me, you wouldn't expect any less of me than to call this. I love puns. The cheesier, the better. And so Love Him a Latte there was no other option for titles for this one. Even though that's actually not a latte, but we were there drinking coffee, and it could have been a latte. It normally would have been. It's just, it was very late at night, so I happened to be drinking a hot chocolate. But one of the coffee drinks that I really love is topped exactly the same way, so it could very well be that one. So that O lost its stickiness, but that's okay. I'll live with it anyways. And so I did Love in the other font just to mix it up a little bit. And then I have these stickers are from my stash. They're little tile stickers. They're from Authentique, and they are called Petite Type, and the style of them is called Crush. So I spelled out Love Him a Latte, and here, see how I'm kind of wishing I had just a little bit more wiggle room here. That would be better. But I don't have that much wiggle room, so I'm going to live with what I've got. I could have pieced those together, but just the way that it wasn't going to work very well. I wasn't going to be happy with the result if I kind of tried to piece a chunk back onto there. So I just decided to live with the smaller paper than what I would have liked. And that's part of winging it, is that sometimes, I often don't think all that far ahead. And so I end up with the wrong sized or the wrong shaped papers. But then you just kind of live with what you've got. And sometimes it ends up giving you new ideas that you wouldn't have otherwise had. So it's all good. This doily is just too shiny for this layout because it's a masculine layout and it's kind of like subdued. I want to have more of like a less energetic feel to it because it's about relaxing in a coffee shop. So I decided I needed something back there just to fill up that gray paper a little bit more, the gray paper with the words all over it. So I went with a large doily just from my stash. And those are doilies that I get from the dollar store, I think, those big giant ones. I think they're in the cake decorating part of the dollar store. Or, by where the baking stuff is. So I'm just going to use some washi tape to stick this tag fairly, I want it to be stuck on the mask so that there's not a whole lot of wiggle room. I don't want it to move around, but also I want the mask to be kind of flat against the tag. And so I'm going to, this is Silver Mr. Huey's, and I'm just trying something here, and I didn't do a test. I figured if I mess it up that much, I could always turn it over and do it again on the back. But what I'm trying to do is get like a messy star look, and it will be messy because it's very watery, right? And so when you use a mask with something that is very watery, it tends to kind of slide down underneath the mask and it makes a bit of messy marks around the edges of it. So this is not a technique you would want to use for something that you want to look neat, but I wanted it to be messy. Basically, I wanted the dark gray glittery part to be kind of oozing out from around the yellow stars that I'm about to paint using this milk paint that I just showed you right here. So I'm just taking a couple scoops of milk paint, which comes in a powder, and just a tiny little splash of water. You're supposed to mix it 1-to-1, but I just eyeball it. And it's hard to mix this milk paint. Like, you really have, it's not hard, it's just you have to do it for a long time to get it mixed because it's very, very powdery, and that powder is reluctant to mix into the water. So you just got to take your time and really, really, really mix it. And so I'm going over this, and I'm trying to have less paint on my paintbrush this time because this is also watery than I did with the gray, because I want you to be able to see the gray kind of around the edges of these stars. So my idea was that I wanted the yellow stars to be a little bit neater than the gray stars underneath of them. And it's sort of, I guess it's sort of worked out. The part that's going to show worked out anyways. So there's my messy star. It doesn't look all that great right now, but I knew I was going to put vellum over a good part of this tag anyways. So, and I figured if it looked really horrible, I would just flip it over and start all over again on the other side. But it turns out that I want to put this swatch of vellum over the bottom part that is messier. It just tones it down and covers up the messy part of it so that the part that is obviously stars is showing more than the bottom part that is more blobby. It also softens the tag because it's a very large, very, very black item on the layout. And it was sort of throwing off the balance of the layout as it was, like if I had used it without putting vellum over it. So here I just switched over to my camera over to my typewriter. This is my charger, which I love. And I'm just typing some phrases. And what I typed was, although I sometimes call Scott a, and then I had to find the quotes. I keep forgetting that the quotes are above the number 2. But quote, coffee snob, I love that we share a love for all things Java. And I didn't mean to use the word love twice. I was going to say, like, I adore that we both share a love for all things Java, but I forgot. And so it is what it is. And I had to retype a couple of things there. And that's the beauty. I think I said this in my last layout, that's the beauty of using journaling strips as opposed to journaling right on your layout, is that you can mess up and just fix it. I also added a couple of extra phrases just in case I didn't fill the tag with the phrases that I had. I couldn't quite judge how big this was going to be once it was all cut into strips and put back together again. So I added another phrase that was something about like just hanging out in a coffee shop like old times, but that's already on another layout recently. So it wasn't imperative that it made it onto this layout. It was more a potential filler. So here I am just cutting up these strips, and this is just a piece of scrap paper from my scrap drawer. I do sort my scraps. I keep a lot of my scraps. Any scraps that I think I'm going to use, I will keep. And I have them in drawers sorted by color, which I know a lot of people don't want to bother, and that's fine. I just find that I use them a lot more often if I know how to find the right colors. And so for me, I've got a really big scrap room, so I have the space. So I've just dedicated, I think, 8 different drawers to my scraps, which allows me to just kind of pull out a drawer and I've got all my reds right there, all my whites, and I keep whites and grays together, and then I keep beiges and browns together, and then I sort by color after that. So I'm just using my Zig two-way glue pen to adhere these on, and I don't know where I'm at right now. I think I might have received a text from somebody. If this lasts too long, I will just edit it out. Okay, so yes, I just edited it so that I am at the point where I'm moving again, and just glued all those down with my Zig two-way glue pen. And I really like the look of that tag. It's something different for me, but I like how it turned out. So now I have this piece of Stampin' Up! Grid paper, which is what I often use for outlining, just so that my stray marks of my marker don't go off onto my gray grid mat. The grid mat that you see in the very background is a Martha Stewart grid mat. That's the gray one. But it is a little difficult to clean the marker off of. And so I tend to use paper when I am outlining something, just to make sure that I don't go off the edges and make a big mess of my grid mat. This is my second grid mat. The one that I used to have was covered in so much stuff that I decided when I got this one a couple years ago that I was going to try to keep it clean. So I'm just going to put these pieces all back together again now that they are outlined. And the outlining that I did, I get a lot of questions about why do I outline, and when do I decide how to outline, and that sort of, how do I decide when to outline and that sort of thing. I'm just going to work from the bottom up in putting down these layers, and you'll see that I actually centered my gray background paper on my grid mat so that it just kind of helps me line it all up when I can kind of visually extend those grid marks onto my layout to decide where I want to put these pieces of paper, especially when I'm doing it all lined up like this. I forget what I was talking about now. I stopped in the middle of a sentence to talk about this. Oh dear. Oh well, doesn't matter. Oh yes, I get a lot of questions about why I outline and how do I decide when to outline. So I outlined those two pieces of pattern paper here just for interest. That's the only reason. They didn't, sometimes I'll outline when I need to emphasize the difference between different layers, and sometimes I do it for a variety of different purposes. I've talked about it in other videos and so on. But in this case, I like the look of it. And so more times than not, that is why I decide to do outlining, just because it's sort of my thing. Like, it makes the layout feel like it's mine. And I really like the added detail around the edges of the paper like that. So I'm going ahead and putting down the word latte, and that's just wax paper that I used under all of my letter stickers there, just so that I could play around with placement. I wasn't sure that they would fit in this spot. So now that I have the word latte there, I can now place this photo, and I just had to put that little photo corner on the back of it first. And I'm just grabbing a piece of string for my tag. I like to have strings on my tags. It makes them feel more real. So using my ATG to place this photo so that the accent on the word latte is kind of beside the photo, so that the photo is nestled into the word latte. And now here are those authentique letter stickers. They're really cute, and they're the perfect shade of gray. They're cream instead of white, but it doesn't really matter. There's no other cream on this layout, but it's a more of a dirty white than really a cream anyways, so it works okay. I think it works okay. And now look at how this O lines up with the polka dot just so perfectly, almost perfectly. You can just see a little sliver of the white in there. I thought that was cool. So I'm using my ATG to glue this down, but I want to keep some of the dimension of, because there's some mist and some paint on it, it's a little cupped, and I want to emphasize the fact that it's a little cupped, but I also want it to lay relatively flat in my book, so I just put some pop dots on the top and bottom. And now it just doesn't seem done to me, so I'm going to think a little bit, and it's going to take me a while to decide what to put on this, but I have these stickers. These are by Pink Paisley, I believe. The manufacturer's strip is cut off of them. But I kind of want to add some gold, even though there's gray, which usually I wouldn't put gray and gold together, but there's yellow and gray look quite nice together, and they're both in the photo, and it's sort of... yeah, it's a color scheme that I really enjoy. So I thought about putting that ampersand right there. I'm not going to put that love, love, love there, even though it's like the color is right. I'm thinking about using this tag sticker there, but it's sort of, I don't know. Bear with me. So then I thought I'd put these butterflies, and it's a masculine layout, so I don't always put butterflies on a masculine layout, but I don't know. I kind of like them, so I decided to go with it. Butterflies are boys too, I'm sure. I know that they are. So yes, and I'm playing around with, I need something to go on these butterfly stickers. They're just a little bit too, I'm going to say flat, even though they're very glittery, so obviously they're not flat. They were just looking a little one-dimensional. So I decided to put those gray enamel dots on there. And now normally I wouldn't put gray and gold together, and it's sort of annoying me a little bit because gray is cool and gold is warm. So here's my fix for that. I've decided to use mist, and I'm going to use mist in both gold and silver. And I'm not entirely sure as I'm doing this that I'm going to like it, but oh my goodness, I love it. Wait till you see it. I really, really love it. So yeah, it's Mr. Huey's silver and Heidi Swap gold are what I'm using. And those two mists splattered together just above and below the trail of the butterflies. So it's above the top butterfly. Here you get to see it. It's still wet as I'm showing it here. But look at how that just makes that enamel dot look like it belongs there. I love that. And it was a total fluke that it worked out because I was really not sure when I opened up those mists and started mixing them. So here you get to see my journaling strips, and there's that other butterfly and some more splatter. So I just kept the splatter over towards where the butterflies were, as opposed to splattering all over the layout or in a corner or in a triangle or anything like that. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you have a really great scrappy week.